Hello and welcome to another video from fantasyfootballscout.co.uk. Today I'm joined by David to discuss the best captaincy options for Game Week 18. David, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thanks. I'm still sort of recovering from a very eventful final few moments for Spurs against Burnley at the weekend, and
Yeah.
somehow Harry Kane out of nowhere kept my run of captain. I don't want to say hauls because it was just 5 points, but captain returns. That's still going.
Yeah, you
So
missed
I've just about calmed
100%.
down from it.
Missed 100%. So as I always recommend when you're on Breakfast Club video on Saturday, find out who David captaining and copy him because you will get points. So admittedly we didn't get a lot, but then a lot of the other options didn't. This
No.
time around, there are so many options. There's so many premium players that people want. People are arguing about them, saying their one's the best choice. Aubameyang's better than Kane, and Kane's better than Aubameyang, and all of this. But they've loads with good fixtures. So let's get cracking with looking at Liverpool options as well. And I say Liverpool options because it's not just about Salah, although Salah will be the main draw. Now they've got an away game with Wolves. Wolves have finally got a clean sheet, but I think that's their first one for 8 games. So clearly they're there for the taking for Liverpool attackers. What do we think of that? Who's the best option out of them? And do we think that a Liverpool option, probably Salah, is one of the best options this week?
Yeah, I think obviously Liverpool they beat Man United I think fairly comfortably, and what we saw from them was a return to the kind of the ruthless, intense attack that we've come to know from Liverpool last season, especially, and we hadn't really seen much of this year. So I think it's definitely encouraging signs from Liverpool that they are still capable of playing in that way. Yeah, Salah, I think out of all of them is the best to look at. I mean, his underlying statistics are still very nice spread across both creativity and goal threat. So 12 chances created last 4 games, 10 shots, 6 in the box, 5 on target, which is comparing quite favourably with the rest of the league. But he's also had 25 touches in the penalty box as well, which is the third best. And the only people above him on that particular statistic are Manchester City players, which I guess isn't really a surprise. So Salah is definitely operating at a level where I think he can score against Wolves, definitely. Obviously, yeah, Wolves defensively haven't been fantastic in the last couple of weeks. As you said, they went a long time without a clean sheet. But my only slight drawback with that particular fixture, captaincy-wise, is it might be quite. I think it might be quite a tight game. Wolves, despite not having kept that many clean sheets, they weren't really getting blown away. Then even now, when you look at their defensive underlying statistics, they're not quite in the same region as your Burnleys and your Fulhams. They're kind of more sort of lower mid-table, lower top half, kind of ninth or 10th best for shots allowed in the box and big chances and all that sort of thing. So I do think that Liverpool will score, but I don't really think it will be in the same volume as we saw against Bournemouth or as we saw against Man United.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the defensive stats there. So if we look at Bournemouth, still second behind Burnley in terms of shots conceded in the box over the last 4 game weeks. So that's still poor, and they've conceded 10 times in those last 4 game weeks, which is a hell of a lot. Obviously, no clean sheets. Now you look at Wolves there. In comparison, 33 shots in the box. And there's quite a few teams, including Everton and Manchester United, who have conceded more close range efforts than Wolves. So Wolves are not doing too bad there. They've actually only conceded 4 goals there, which is probably about right for that level of shots as well. So it's not like they're particularly overperforming, certainly not with 1 clean sheet. This one I like though, just 2 big chances. What Opta consider a big chance conceded, just 2 there. Bournemouth conceded 10. So I don't think we're going to get a huge haul from Salah, but I do think he's capable. Another player I do want to mention though, and it's not Mane, it's actually Firmino. Looking at the underlying stats, sometimes when you look at these stats, suddenly names pop up. Rondon has been one recently, but Firmino I've been noticing there, 14 shots over the last 4. So obviously you mentioned there, Salah's had 12, so there's a couple more shots there. I know Salah's been playing in that more central role, but I know they've been mixing it up a bit and maybe Firmino moving a bit more centrally sometimes. And clearly it's working and it's paying off there. So Firmino's just had the 1 goal and the 1 assist over the last 4. The shot count there indicates that he's actually underperforming and he should actually be scoring much more in terms of goals. So I think he could be an option, possibly not for the captaincy, but certainly to bring in. But nevertheless, an option there. I've been looking over to another bunch of players. Really, we're looking at Man City, and home to Palace. That looks, I think, the key fixture of the week. That looks like a great fixture. But we've got loads of options. So, who are the best City options? And are City options, once again, are they the best options this week for the captaincy?
Yeah, I really like this fixture. I think whenever Man City are at home against anyone who's outside the top six, it's automatically a good fixture to focus on, regardless of who or how good the other team are defensively. Because, I mean, some people might take a look at the fact that Palace have had 2 home clean sheets in a row. They even kept a clean sheet against Leicester without James Tompkins, who's kind of, one of their important defensive players. So I think, but I think all that goes out the window when it's Man City, because they're just so dominant at home. So absolutely, this is a fixture we've got to look at, because just no one can compare with what Man City are like at home. In terms of who the best option is, I think the 3 that people will probably be looking at will probably either be Sané, Sterling, and the odd few who maybe still have Aguero. They're probably going to be the 3 that people might consider. Personally, I mean, of course, I'm always going to give my opinion based on who I've actually got in my team, and I have Sané and I don't have Sterling, and there's lots of reasons for that, and probably go into a lot more detail on that particular subject of sort of long term on this, more on the Scoutcast. But Sané is who I'm looking at the moment. When I set my team after the Gameweek 17 deadline, I put the armband straight on Sané because he's just been so consistent at home. He's starting regularly. The fact that he's kind of missed a chunk at the beginning of the season, and the fact that there's not so much competition for his place, in my mind, makes him the most likely attacking player to start for Man City most game weeks. He's quite fit as well, so I don't really think Guardiola's worried about his his fitness in the same sense as some others. But his underlying statistics are still very nice. He's created 10 chances in the last 4 game weeks, and that's obviously why he's been able to put assists up as well as goals. His goal for it actually isn't as nice as I'd like. It's only 3 shots on target in the last couple of game weeks, but only Jesus has touched the ball more times in the penalty box than Sané in the last 4 game weeks, and so that just tells me that Sané is always in the right place in a team that's always going to be dangerous in that area of the pitch. Yeah. So for me, it's him. Of course, there is obviously the strong case for Sterling as well. Sterling doesn't quite compare so favourably over that period because he hasn't played so many minutes, which again is kind of could count against him because I still think he's the more benchable option out of the 2. We're going to have a really nice clue from the League Cup games midweek, which I think is key. Yeah. If Sterling doesn't play in that, and you've got Sterling, then I think you go for it because it's a home game. It's Man City. It's Raheem Sterling. If he's going to play, he's going to get points. So I think with Man City, the key is that League Cup game. Yeah. Assess who's not there and just captain whoever you've got who didn't play in League Cup, I think is the bottom.
Yeah, no, I agree with. I mean, I've got Sané. I was great relief. I also set up my bus team in case the worst happened with road traffic. And Sané was indeed my captaincy, my default option. And I was quite pleased when you tweeted that it was yours as well. So completely separately, we'd gone for the same one. Because you've got a 100% record, I feel confident. Looking at that midweek team sheet. If Sané plays 90 minutes, then a little bit of doubt might creep in. But I think one of 2 things will happen. One, he clearly sees Sané as so vital to the way they're set up that he wants him to play every match, and some of the matches, like at the weekend, he's only going to play about 60. So there is that option, in which case I might not captain him. But if he's not on that midweek team sheet, and he's not a starter there, well, yeah, then I'm definitely captaining him. I was looking also at last form. So you mentioned about comparing with Sterling as well. So I mean, obviously here I was looking at form. So this is on the FPL site, readily available to anyone. Press the form button, and this is how many points they're getting per match over the last 30 days. And Sané is top of all players. So he's averaging 8.4, and Salah is second with 7.6. Obviously buoyed by that amazing hat trick at Bournemouth there, and down below is Sterling, as you would imagine, because he's missed those games at 6.6. So he's still doing really well. So it's not to put down Sterling, but there is one underlying stat I noticed when you're comparing Sané and Sterling, and this is minutes per goal attempt in the box. So this doesn't actually. This is kind of, you don't have to have played a lot. This is saying when you're on the pitch, this is what's happening. So this is the average here. And Sterling has had significant minutes on the pitch, even though he hasn't started a couple of games. Sterling is getting a shot in the box away every 40 minutes. and Sané is getting a shot in the box away every 49 minutes. And considering Sané, the more I would see him as more creative, more assist potential. The fact that he's just below Sterling really in that regard says to me that I think he is the better all-round option at the moment. So tough choice for those who have got Sterling and Sané. I think I'd probably, like you were saying, I think I'd probably go for Sané. Now, Sané, of course, was one of a number of heavy hitters that did well in game week 17. One that didn't do so well, although he did get an assist, is Harry Kane. Now, he's away to Everton. What do you think about Harry Kane as an option? Say, as obviously Sané's the one you're looking at here, but do you think Kane is a really good option? Or do you think he's lost his touch?
Yeah, I think with Kane it's really tricky because I think as even as football fans, let alone fantasy football managers, we all have short memories, don't we? And I think a lot of people will be put off captaining him in this game because Spurs were so leggy and so kind of lethargic against Burnley. I think when you look at what they've been like after European games, they don't play as well, and the game that the Cardiff game, the infamous Cardiff game that everybody went in on Kane and captained him and he did nothing, was after a Champions League match as well. And I think that you have to view that game through the filter of the context of that game, and also just the way that Burnley set up. They played a 4-5-1, tried to stifle Spurs, which is actually quite easy to do when Spurs were hungover from European football. This game takes on a completely different context because it's they're away at Everton, so Everton aren't going to sit in. I mean, Marcus Silva, I don't really think is the kind of manager that would do that anywhere. I mean, he didn't do it against Man City, so he's not going to do it at home against Spurs, is he? So there's going to be a more open game. I do think there will be more chances for Kane, and I think that. So, I mean, other sort of factors as well was from that Burnley game was that Eriksen wasn't in the starting lineup.
Yes.
Son wasn't in the starting lineup. I'd be very surprised if they didn't make the starting lineup for this. So I think we're going to have a much more coherent Spurs unit. So while the stats for Kane in the last couple of game weeks don't look great because obviously he missed most of the Leicester game, played very poorly against Burnley, I don't really think you should that shouldn't count against him for this game because as we've seen, Everton are a team that most people can score against. So there's no reason why Kane can't either.
Yeah, no, I do urge people to have a look on Fantasy Football Scout. There was an article written over the weekend, it was either by yourself or Neil, looking at that Spurs game against Burnley. And there's a really good table in there looking at all of the matches after Champions League games to see what they happened. And I think that Cardiff game is an indicator. So look, there's 1, 2, 3. So we've got six matches there to look at, and people have a look at that because they tell that story. There's a definite Champions League hangover there. The other thing I just want to mention, you mentioned people have short memories about Kane. I've got a really long memory, and this goes back to last season, and it was game week 4, and people were saying exactly the same things about Harry Kane as they're saying this week, that he can't be trusted with the armband, he's a bit of a troll, and all these types of things. Well, he went to Goodison Park and he scored a brace, and it kick-started quite a lot of hauls for him there. It was a real game changer, in fact, for the Kane and the Kaneless. And so I think I've got that long memory there. We saw what Hazard did at Brighton last season, did the same again this season. What do we think about Hazard? He was one of the premium assets that actually delivered game week 17. Do we think another haul's incoming?
It could be. I mean, I said before that game week that he was the player I most feared not owning. And it came to pass. He got the double-figure haul that most premium options weren't able to deliver. I think with him, we should probably just touch on that injury. It's not that serious. Sarri's been referring to it as maybe something that sort of keeps him from training from 1 to 2 days maximum. So, I don't really think we should be too worried about whether or not he starts because I think he will. He's just been showing remarkable consistency over a period where people have been losing faith in him, which I think is so strange. And I obviously include myself in that because I'm one of the people that lost faith in him, and he's proved me wrong. But I mean, I suppose maybe we're used to that. People sell Hazard and he gets points. That's what he does. But it's 5 assists in his last 4, and his first goal since game week 8. He definitely had. I think from a fantasy perspective, it was he had a point to prove, I guess, against Brighton, and he proved it that he's a central figure for Chelsea. He's playing false 9 because Giroud and Morata aren't good enough to start or they're not fit. It's a case of either or for each of those two strikers. So he just looks like the main man for them. The fixture itself, so Hazard I think looks great. The fixture itself, It's not quite. I always kind of I always use the term smoking gun when I go to the defensive statistics and I go, oh wow, they're in for a pasting, and I don't really think Leicester are. Just because again we've talked about chances conceded and big chances, and they rank in an area of the table that I don't really want the opponent for my captain to be in.
Yeah.
It's sort of 28 attempts conceded in the box over the last 4 game weeks, which is 8th best basically, and you've got teams like even Spurs have conceded more than that, and Man United have conceded more than that. So I don't really I see Chelsea winning that game, but I don't see it being the kind of absolute goal fest that you would want from a captain. I think that's maybe where I would stand on Hazard as the captain.
Yeah, no, I think you're right there. I think that's bang on. I think Hazard himself, you look at the underlying stats and the actual conversion into points, 13 chances created, 11 goal attempts. I mean, that's great for a midfielder. And he's not even one of the most expensive midfielders as well. Expensive, but not among. He's not as expensive as Sterling or Salah. So yeah, I think he's offering a lot at the moment. And you always say about Hazard, once he's in that run, you've really got to get there in before if you can, or early on. He's early on in one. I think you've got another couple of good hauls in him. I think he could score. He could get some points. But I do look at those defensive stats, and I think you're right. I think there are better this week as well. And there's worse defences out there, or indeed in Man City's case, there's just a better attack out there. In contrast to Hazard, Aubameyang really let down his owners on game week 17. Southampton completely. Wow. I mean, that came as a bit of a shock. We didn't expect that turnaround. But Aubameyang couldn't get... It was Mkhitaryan who was the one who was getting on the score sheet, but not Aubameyang. So, home game with Burnley were, on paper, worst defence. But then we saw against Spurs, are they actually the worst defence? So, yeah, what do we think about Aubameyang as the captain?
Yeah, I think if you've got Aubameyang right now, I think people are already talking about selling him. I don't think you should do that. I think you should hold. I think just looking at that game week in isolation, Aubameyang, when you look at the underlying data, should have outscored Kane because he had more shots than him, more in the box. He was touched the ball in the box the same number of times as Kane. So Kane had the same kind of opportunity in terms of position, but didn't capitalise on it in terms of shots and what have you, as Aubameyang did. And I do think he was really unlucky because there was that one instance in the first half where the ball was fizzed across the face of goal. Aubameyang was preparing to slide in and score in a classic tap-in, and there was just an incredible recovering challenge from Bednarek that it just kind of it looked like his leg was about 3 meters long because he came in and he made this unbelievable tackle. And then, 9 times out of 10, he puts that in the back of the net, and instantly you don't view Aubameyang in the same way. So I think if you've got him, you've obviously targeted this Burnley game as one of the reasons because you kind of looked at it in a long-term sense because the fixtures are very good. So I think if you've got Aubameyang, you have to consider him for this particular game. I know that he let a lot of people down by not doing as well against Huddersfield, for example. So some people might view Huddersfield and Burnley at home as a similar type of fixture. But as those of us who've been looking at the underlying data know this season, they're really not the same type of fixture at all because Huddersfield seem defensively a lot more organised than Burnley do. And yes, Burnley have made some improvements in the last couple of weeks. They got that clean sheet against Brighton. They obviously only conceded 1 against Spurs. They've only actually conceded 6 goals in the last 4 game weeks, which actually for them isn't too bad. I mean, you've got teams like Arsenal that have conceded more than that, Cardiff, Man United, Fulham, Bournemouth. So there's about 7 or 8 teams that have conceded more than them, but those shots are still there. Those shots in the box are still there. They've gone back to the bottom of that table. They were level with Bournemouth going into this game week, but they're now bottom again. 48 shots conceded in the box. There's going to be loads of opportunities for Aubameyang in this game, and bearing in mind, the nature of that result, I think Arsenal will feel a little bit embarrassed to be, to have looked for their unbeaten run to have ended at a team like Southampton that had their troubles. I know they've got a new manager, but yeah, like you said, it was a shock. We weren't expecting it, and I think this home game against a team that's going to give them all plenty of chances to score is absolutely perfect opportunity to rack up a 3 or 4-0 win. Tell everybody that Southampton was just a blip and that Aubameyang is still one of the best strikers in the league. I think that if you've got him, you've got to consider him for the captaincy.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think you've got to have patience. Really, you've got him. People who got him in, they got him in to captain him, and exactly this type of fixture. Really, I think you've got to stay with that. And yeah, and I think as you alluded to, I think he was perhaps unlike Kane was basically Burnley did a number on him. Aubameyang was unlucky not to get something from that match. Looking elsewhere, I mean, we've put there's so many good captaincy options we've gone through as well. I think there's even more as well, particularly looking at the fixtures, particularly amongst kind of, I suppose, cheaper strikers as well. A few differentials. Who's perhaps caught your eye as a differential captain this week?
Well, I really like the look of Danny Ings just generally from that game against Arsenal, because I think there's some really great comments that came out of that game at the end about how Ralph Hasenhüttl quite likes a high press. He's seen as the Austrian Klopp by a lot of people in terms of his playing style. And obviously Danny Ings has spent the last 3 of his years, learning from the master of the gegenpress. And so, he's the perfect fit for Hasenhüttl. I think he's going to play most games, and obviously he scored twice against Arsenal. So I mean, obviously they're away at Huddersfield, and Huddersfield aren't, they're not awful defensively, like I said, but I do think that Southampton can go there and win, and I think if they do, Ings will be involved. We've always talked about the West Ham guys, haven't we? I mean, you were saying on the Scoutcast last week that the underlying statistics that we see from Anderson and that spread of potential of chances created in his shots, and he seems to be fulfilling the role that Arnautovic was before in terms of that team of just running the show completely. Again, looks like a great captain candidate if you really are looking for something very differential and you want to maybe go down the sort of the Maverick Luke kind of route. Then Anderson's definitely one to consider. Watford defensively not impressed with them this year, so definitely think Anderson's going to get some returns there. So those two in particular I quite like the look of.
Yeah, no, I think you're right there. There's another one, Rondon, as well. He's still up there, top of these underlying stats. 14 shots as well, 2 goals and an assist. So he's really delivering on those as well, unlike in previous seasons with him. Now he was my goals imminent table. It was a great weekend for that. Rondon, Milivojevic, Mkhitaryan and Jimenez, all 4 of them were on that table. So that's getting towards half the goals imminent table, all scored. Mkhitaryan was a surprise people, but not the old goals imminent table. So looking ahead to game week 18, there's some names there in that third striker category. Now Mitrovic hasn't done a lot recently, and Fulham aren't looking great at all, but he's up there, 3rd place, and in fact he's moved up the table. That indicates this could be a Mitrovic week as well, which is interesting news for me, because I was thinking of dumping him for Danny Ings,
me too. But it's Newcastle. I mean, I think that's the only other thing that if there's one other factor we can talk about with captains, because we talk about form, we talk about fixtures. Sometimes narrative is a big one. And it just kind of feels like the footballing gods are just going to give us a Mitrovic.
Feels right, doesn't it? Feels right. That one, it's a real romantic one. He's going to go on there and
for everyone but Newcastle,
for everyone, and then show them what they've been missing, which of course all the fans know anyway. They all know.
They got Rondon now, they don't need Mitrovic.
Yeah, this is true. But here's another name, Rashford as well. Now I know he's a name that's probably going to crop up on the Scoutcast as well. Lots of people interested in him. But he's up against Cardiff. The Cardiff at home are better. But Rashford has made an appearance on the goals imminent table, so who knows? That could be a differential captaincy pick. Loads of options too. I've never known anything like it. This is one of the most captainy week ever.
I feel very spoiled.
We're very spoiled for choice. But for now, David, thanks so much for that. See you later in the week on the Scoutcast, and good luck with the game week.
Yes, and to you as well.